It was a warm Friday afternoon on the corner of Oak Avenue, just outside Linden's bustling city center. Officer Jack Miller sat in his patrol car, finishing the last sip of his coffee. Jack wasn't known for his kindness. His badge often seemed to amplify his arrogance rather than his sense of duty. But today, that arrogance would lead him into a situation he'd regret for the rest of his life. Across the street, a tall man in a dark suit stepped out of a cafe. His name was Ethan Rivers, a calm, confident individual who had recently been promoted to captain and assigned to Linden's precinct. What Jack didn't know, however, was that this man was now his superior officer, a fact that would soon turn Jack's day upside down. Ethan began crossing the street, his posture exuding authority. To Jack, however, it seemed more like a challenge. Gripping his steering wheel, he narrowed his eyes. Jack didn't like how this man carried himself. Without a clear reason, Jack slammed his car door shut and strode toward Ethan with an air of intimidation. "Hey you, what are you doing around here?" Jack barked, stepping into Ethan's path. His voice was sharp, meant to assert dominance. Ethan stopped and looked at Jack with calm but surprised eyes. "I'm on my way to a meeting," he replied evenly. Jack ignored the explanation, sneering. "You look like you're up to no good. Got any ID?" Ethan reached slowly into his jacket. "Of course, officer. Let me show you," he said, maintaining his composure. But before Ethan could pull out his wallet, Jack grabbed his arm roughly. "Don't act like you're someone important," Jack growled, his temper flaring. Without warning, he swung his fist, striking Ethan square in the face. The impact staggered Ethan, but he didn't fall. A small crowd gathered, watching in stunned silence. Ethan touched his cheek where Jack's fist had landed and straightened his posture. "You just made a big mistake," Ethan said, his voice firm. Jack smirked. "Oh yeah? What mistake is that?" Ethan locked eyes with him. "I'm Captain Ethan Rivers, your new commanding officer." Jack froze, his face draining of color. What did you say?" he stammered. "You heard me," Ethan replied, pulling out his official ID. "And you just assaulted a superior officer. I'll be pressing charges." Jack's arrogance evaporated. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The bystanders who had witnessed everything began murmuring, some recording the incident on their phones. The weight of what he had done hit Jack like a freight train. Ethan didn't wait for Jack to respond. He pulled out his phone and dialed. "This is Captain Rivers. I need a squad at Oak Avenue. Officer Jack Miller has assaulted me. No injuries, but I'll be filing charges. Send someone immediately." Minutes later, 2 squad cars arrived. Sergeant Linda Moore, a no-nonsense officer with over 20 years of experience, stepped out. "Captain Rivers," she greeted, her eyes flicking to Jack in confusion. "What's going on?" Ethan turned to her. "Sergeant, I'm pressing charges against Officer Miller for assault. He struck me without provocation." Linda's face tightened. "Jack, is this true?" she asked. Jack stammered, his confidence shattered. I didn't know he was the captain. Whether you knew or not doesn't matter," Linda said curtly. She turned to the other officers. "Cuff him." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Jack's career unraveled. He sat silently in the back of the squad car, his thoughts racing. The once confident officer was now a man stripped of power and respect. At the station, Jack was taken to a small interrogation room. Ethan entered shortly after, his calm demeanor unnerving. "Explain yourself," Ethan demanded, sitting across from him. Jack hesitated. "I didn't know who you were," he mumbled. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And that justifies your actions?" "No, sir," Jack admitted, his voice barely audible. Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying him. "This isn't just about today, Jack. This is about your behavior, your attitude. Officers like you damage public trust. There will be consequences." A knock at the door interrupted them. Linda entered with a file. "Captain, the disciplinary committee is ready," she said. Ethan stood, turning back to Jack. "Your fate is in your hands now. What happens next depends on you." To Jack's surprise, at the hearing, Ethan proposed an alternative to immediate dismissal. Jack would undergo a 6-month rehabilitation and training program, coupled with community service under Ethan's supervision. "This is your last chance, Jack," Ethan warned. "Make it count." The decision marked a turning point for Jack. The program wasn't easy, but it taught him humility, empathy, and the true meaning of service. Over time, he earned back the respect of his colleagues and the community. Meanwhile, Ethan's leadership transformed the precinct. His firm yet fair approach inspired change, proving that authority wasn't about power but responsibility. Jack's story became a cautionary tale, and Ethan's influence ensured that Lyndon's police force would never be the same again.